Yeah, no. So, uh, welcome to another episode. That's all funny. My episode today. If you want to introduce yourself, Rick.
Hey, how's it going? It's a pleasure.
Hey,
My name is Rick Alexander Scharbau, 37 years old. Yeah, I'm here to just speak about my memoir. I just woke and my transformation and just, start talking about life in general.
no, that sounds great. No, I think I'm 37 or 38. I forget the years.
Wait, this way.
The years go past me after 30. So
Okay, you think?
yeah,
What
I
year
know.
were you born?
87.
Okay, 86 years. So, yep,
Okay, yeah. So I'm around the same age. No,
love it.
but you. So we kind of grew up around the same space.
Yes.
More or less the same times. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
say,
You grew up
mhm?
on all the Rugrats and the cartoons and all that stuff, or
Oh yeah,
oh
definitely
yeah,
World
were you
Park.
Scooby Doo or Ninja Turtles?
Ninja Turtles, Scooby Doo. I'm not a
Okay.
big fan of,
There you go.
but I did grow up with a lot of the reruns too of the old shows like the Nick at Night, where we
Yep.
saw a lot of that. So I
Oh
do.
yeah, Thundercats and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. 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 Power Rangers, everything like
Oh
that.
yeah. Good old stuff. Oh, yeah. That's bringing back memories.
And so you say you have this memoir. Um, Is this sort of something you've been writing, since you were younger? Did it just start? How did you get into that?
Let's see here. I just started writing it a couple of years ago because what happened was a whole bunch of stuff kind of happened to me back in the beginning of 2021. And then it kind of, I started living life. And I didn't start writing for an entire year after everything kind of happened because I stayed awake for 5 days straight and kind of checked myself into the behavioral hospital and went to the ER and saw a therapist and kind of in terms of what you would say call mad or crazy a little bit. No better way to explain it. But
Mm,
spiritual awakenings, enlightenments are different because I also went on a whole bunch of like antipsychotics and ADHD medication, all that stuff. And then I would say a part of my new experience is kind of challenging life in a whole new way by not doing any of that anymore. And it's
that's
been quite the experience through psychedelics as well. It's been an eye opener.
that's tough too. I don't know if you. Yeah, I'm on a lot of anti-anxiety medication and stuff like that with the doctor prescriptions. So,
Are you? Okay,
um,
which ones?
oh, it's a laundry list. I would say
I understand.
clonazepam, buspirone, uh desvenlafaxine, clonidine,
Okay.
man, and then I do take Adderall as well.
Okay.
So there's kind of like a balance there. And
How much of that do you take? I'm curious.
which one, the Adderall?
Yeah.
15 milligrams a day.
Okay.
So not too much. Of course, I wish I had more, but I sound like I'm addicted when I talk to the doctor like that. But
Right.
uh,
No, I remember my days of using it recreationally, and that was pretty, doing 60 milligrams at a time that's always fun.
ooh, geez, no, I know. My first story with Adderall, I remember taking. I think he prescribed me like 25 milligrams, and my head was spinning, and it was just like the worst feeling in the world. Made me dizzy for weeks.
You get like
Even after
jittery
that,
and stuff and anxious, and it just feels like you can't settle down.
yeah, very
Do
restless.
your fingers shake at all?
No, but I do have like I don't know if I do it anymore, but I have this like twitch with my neck and my shoulder.
Okay.
So I do twitch a little, and I am restless at night, but it's I don't know. And then I've been on other what kind of like Adderall. What was it like modafinil or
Okay. I don't know that one.
yeah, that one I would be up like when you're there laying down trying to sleep with your eyes closed and you're just awake the whole night.
Yep. Yeah. There's no way shutting it off. You're sitting there like, okay, when's it going to turn off? When's it going to turn off? And then you
Mhm.
feel like you almost get there and then stop, and you never quite do.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Yes.
I can't imagine you taking that challenge to if you were on prescriptions to get off of them. And I was wondering how did you like did someone inspire you to do this, or were you like, you know what, I need to do this myself, you know?
I kind of wanted to do it myself because I've been on prescriptions. I've been on something since I've been 14 years old. So, I started on Neurontin for sleep issues early on. And since then I've been going to doctors, for try this, try that, all the antidepressants and all that stuff. So, and then, yeah, you just sit there and like you said, you have all those restless nights. You just can't turn your brain off and stuff. And it seems like no matter what you do or what you try or what new recipe or cocktail they throw at you, it may change it slightly, but it never adjusts the scale enough for you to change anything. And so you
Mhm.
kind of stay in that funk a lot. And it was weird because I just wanted to try a new way of life too, because I had been doing a lot of research on psychedelics and mushroom experiences. And I was on antidepressants and I'd done a whole bunch of research. Do your own, please. It's SSRI. It's like serotonin syndrome, where you can overdose, where you have too much of it. So I actually confronted my doctor and I asked her, I want to go off of that. So we did. And then I kind of started doing that. And that actually inspired me to try to do a whole new life in a new way, because it made me realize kind of like, why do I even need to try it? And so I went back to my doctor a couple times, like, well, I only have one bipolar episode, if that's what you call it. So I was like, hey, let's try it again. I'm curious if it's going to happen again. And so I guess I got to the point of, well, I could be miserable on these medications, or I could just, for once take the jump that I never had the balls to do in a weird
Mm.
way. And it was weird. It was weird because I don't recommend it, but I was like staring at myself in the mirror and I confronted myself. Like, it was very weird. I had a moment of realization where I had the thought of taking my next pill, but it's hard to explain because you don't have all the anxiety and all your thoughts behind it. So it's almost like you have a different way of looking at it. And it's like, wait, I'm good. And instead of forcing it out, you just kind of gently put it in the garbage can and don't look back. Because then you also have to accept yourself. This is me. No matter what happens, I don't care how anybody looks at me. Whatever emotions come out, this is what's going to happen. Yeah, this is me. So what? You know, I can get a little emotional at times. My energy does get thrown off still. That's why this whole process of awakening is very weird, because grounding, it's hard. And I feel grounded, but it's hard for me to talk about my story in general without just feeling so. And I think that's why it took me 2 years to write it.
Mhm. And, were these, alternatives to medicine, were they hard to, like? Because I know, us growing up, uh, in the '90s, like that, the same age, I know I was pushed in school and stuff like that, the don't do
Dare.
drugs. Yeah, and stuff like that.
Yep.
Was it hard for you to turn to these alternatives? Because I know when I looked at, like, marijuana or mushrooms, I'm like, "Oh, man, no, they always said those were bad," like, they would always say, "Don't do that," but now, like,
Right.
things are different, like, how did you feel about, switching
Ju-
to any sort of alternatives like that?
Yeah, I would say it's much more natural because I consider it, hey, I like mushrooms. They grow out of the ground. I'm much into the psilocybin and how mycelium's all connected. It's like apparently in 70% of the soil, I read, or something. Like, it's crazy how like interconnected it is. And also when you realize you're awakening with conscious, how everything's connected. So when it comes to that, I understand what you're saying with the DARE program, because I did. I had the same experiences. Just to let you know, in high school, I had terrible psychedelic experience. I mean, I saw the devil. I projected outside of Seattle. I puked in the middle of the garbage can in the middle of the street in Seattle, and I saw demons outside the car window. Well, I had my head buried in a garbage bag for like what felt like hours. So, and then what happened was, I just, like you said, exact same thing. I thought they were drugs, and it's like, whoa, I'm never. What the hell was that? And that all happened back in the day. And I continued to do drugs per se, because what happened was in high school, I probably started about 15 or 16 smoking weed and stuff like that pretty heavily. And then I got into that. So then what happened was, yeah, and then got really tried psychedelics a couple times, had those terrible experiences, put the whole psychedelics off to the side. Now, weed's still a weird one for me because I still do smoke it, but I still do think of it as a little bit like alcohol, where you can absolutely still be addicted to it. It's not something that I don't think you should be a Cheech and Chong. But weed may have its benefits for people who are on like the ADHD spectrum or something like that. In general, it's hard to say. But in my personal experience, because it helps at times, but that's a weird thing to say. Because right now the only thing we have is medication as options, so it's hard to think of those natural alternatives like you're talking about. What's okay? So weed's still a weird one. That's kind of on your own spectrum, I believe. But back to the psychedelics, I didn't try them again until after my spiritual awakening. It happened beginning of 2021. And then what happened was I reconnected with my friend Luke. Out of nowhere, I hit all my friends on my phone, right? I just literally started reaching out because I had the thought, I have no friends. And I really wanted to connect with somebody. So I reached out and started messaging people. And Luke was the first one to message me back with a thumbs up emoji, and we connected and stuff. And he used to be a really good friend of mine. And within like a couple of weeks of us talking, since we hadn't talked for so long, he was like, wait a minute, you're into like spiritual stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in all that stuff. Let's bring it on. And he's like, you ever tried mushrooms? I'm like, oh, because then I had that first thought you're talking about. I was like, oh, not that again. But that's when he got me really thinking about a whole new way of, well, because then I read near-death experiences and stuff like that, and being able to confront a lot of your fears and being able to surrender to an experience. It's an odd way to say it, kind of like, I guess, not the same, but I guess jumping out of a plane. You just kind of have to accept the fact you're doing it, right? And that's a lot of scary thing for people to experience, because I understand the dark side of it when it goes wrong, when it obviously you don't see very nice things thrown in your face and you see gestures and stuff. But what's weird about my transformation is I just haven't had any of those negative, I hate calling them negative experiences, because it's weird, but it's been much more enlightening and different way to look at it. Because every time, like, I just go into it with a much more, you can't look at it as recreational, like you said, getting it out of a bag from a drug dealer or something like that. No, the first time I did it, I actually grew them myself with Luke. I actually got them from my friend him, and he gave me the first one. It's different when you like grow them yourself and you appreciate them and stuff like that. And I used it without the intent to get high. I actually used it with the intent to try to better myself. And that's also a very different thing to do, because I still see people online going around, oh, I'm just going to do it to have a good time. I'm like, well, eventually something's going to hit you in the face. As Terrence McKenna would say, you'll have that bouncing basketball jubilee thing screaming at you in front of your face eventually. So it's also one of those things I understand where it's weird to play with, because psychedelics is such an odd experience, because it's so different. Because everybody, I've read stories of people who wouldn't touch it because they've had such terrible experiences. But I've had, you go online like I did and you find near-death experiences. And that's what also got me into writing philosophy and stuff like that, and digging into like what the meaning of everything is. And that's a weird thing to understand, because, yeah, I am way better off mentally now than I ever was on a whole bunch of medications. I was struggling for work. The olanzapine I was on, the antipsychotics, I could barely get out of bed to go to work and stuff like that. It was draining my energy. So what's weird, I felt like on the medications I had no energy, but off the medications I had too much energy. And I'm sure some people can understand that, where it's like you don't want to take that manic jump into what you think is, the energy, or it's hard to say. Because
Yeah.
you're worried about what life would be without all the prescription you've been on for so long. I don't know how long you've been on all your medications, but I guess I was on them. I had been on some type of something, whether it be drugs or medications, for 20 years, and I think I got to a point where it's just like, you know what? There's got to be a different way, and it was weird to confront. So I think it's kind of the whole shaman. I want to say it's about treating it like a shamanistic approach, and having a respect for it, as anybody would say. Terrence McKenna has been a big one for me. He's like, what you do is you eat it and you sit with it before you even do it. And so what I started doing was I'd eat the mushrooms and I'd write a page of why I ate the mushrooms to begin with, and then I would sit and close my eyes. And those are the type of experiences that I would just be absolutely profound, and then I just get taken to a whole new place, because it's different.
No,
Yeah.
I know. I've
Have you ever done mushrooms? Let me ask you that.
yeah, I've microdosed, I guess you'd call it. Like my buddy grows them, and
Heck
tr-
yes.
I've tried them just because I'm at like at this point in my life at my I would say my wits end where I feel like I've exhausted all of the medications from my doctor, like my where I get my prescriptions. So I'm open to more alternatives in medicine, whether it be mushrooms. I've tried now, and again, like I said, I grew up a real uh, positive dare person. I never tried marijuana, this and that. So even had tried marijuana. I'm about to try ketamine again, even though I've tried it and it was like so. It just made me kind of tired. But yeah, I feel like the prescriptions have done as much as they can do, and I've plateaued to where I'm turning to shoot. Even I was trying to drink alcohol, like to get that fear out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I only grab because I don't like alcohol anymore. I actually quit that. That was a part of my experience. I, I have a drink every now and then. It's terrible. It just doesn't
But
sit with me right.
But even then, I was like, well, maybe that'll help soothe the feeling because I my body, it feels like I guess as a human, you say it's like a fight or flight response, and I
Yes.
feel like my body is in constant fight or flight response where it feels like there's a fear. I feel like my mind thinks I need to be scared, but there's nothing to be afraid of, and it's constantly tired now because it's always in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about what the voice in the back of your head. I love listening to Linkin Park, and that's what Chester would always say. It's like it feels like there's always something watching over behind you or something like that. You just can't get rid of or shake, and you're always making mistakes, and it's judging you and all that stuff. And it's just like you're just never okay. And and you're just waiting for there to be an okay moment. You're just like, oh, it's going to be okay eventually because everyone keeps telling me it's going to be okay eventually, right? I'll just keep following the plan that everybody has. And so I understand what you mean. You just plateau. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, no, I've even got it as far as my father. He's very religious as far as like I don't know if he's Catholic or Christian. It's one of those, but he even offered like his buddy came and gave me like a little exorcism to try and I was even open to that. I was like, you know
I'm
what?
curious. I've never seen one. I've never.
Yeah, it was like him praying to me with another guy, and they were kind of doing it in Spanish because we're Mexican, and trying to like just say,
Okay.
oh, get whatever evils out of him, blah blah blah. And I was open to it because I feel like I'm at the end of you know what I mean? Like I said, the
I do.
prescriptions aren't working, so it's like, well, that's not gonna hurt. Why not try it and see what
No,
happens?
absolutely. It's kind of like
Yeah.
one of those things with Reiki and stuff like that, and energy and stuff like that. Being able to believe and have people help you in certain ways and stuff like that. Because it's also, yeah, the belief system's powerful. And so sometimes people do just need to be looked at, or even those experiences, putting people in that, they get into a different environment where they're able to just relax for the first time in their life. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is to be able to get taken out of that fight or flight mode just for a minute, just so they can start to relax and ground. And trust me, taking more medications doesn't give you that relaxation, that, like, being able to just close your eyes and relax and meditate and be actually comfortable in your own thoughts. So it makes me feel like medications are trying to medicate the body, but it feels like what we need to be doing is trying to medicate the actual mind, or ease our thoughts and stuff. And it feels
Mhm.
like sometimes the medications just make the body more anxious and stuff like that. Because if you don't take them all the time, I don't know how withdrawal effects for you if you like miss a medication, or you know, there's times when I'd be going to work and I'd miss some or something like that, and I didn't take my morning, and then like halfway through the day, I'm like freaking out because I think I'd be going to go crazy if I didn't get them. And that's such a mind trick. It's like, wait a minute, and it's like all a game that I'm playing. Because then I'm thinking halfway through the day, and then I'm shaking, freaking out. It's like, man, I haven't taken my medication in a long time. I need to get back to it. I'm at work though. I don't know if you've ever had those moments.
Oh yeah, I'll know there. I've had those moments where, like, probably even today, I have to uh babysit right tonight, like my nieces, and I'm already like worried. okay, well, when should I take my pills for tonight so I don't get nervous? Even though I'm not nervous right now, I'm
But
nervous about the potential of being anxious, you know?
I get that because the thought crosses your mind that something in the future that you're potentially going to have to deal with that you could potentially miss. No, I understand that's a weird one.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I don't know. It's crazy
That's
how
hard
yeah, I've gotten to that point where oh,
because the worry's justified. You can't miss it, right? And that's what you're going to say is like, I can't not miss it. I don't want to feel terrible,
mhm.
but it's hard not to think about it.
Do you and I don't know if this is in your book or anything or when I was talking about like religion, do you believe like there's some sort of like benefit in that too? Like I know I tried the exorcism and it didn't do anything. It was like a nice thought, my dad caring about me to go enough to organize that. But how do you feel about like a belief system or religion or something like that to benefit as a
I
benefit?
think I think it's absolutely beneficial in some ways. Just because I'd say to the people who are lost, it's like, well, if you don't have a belief system, why not try to look for something better? And that's why it's a whole weird thing with religion and stuff. Because I was raised Catholic, I was baptized and all that stuff, so I understand. But then what happened was when I grew up, my dad was kind of atheist, and so I kind of went that way. I was like, oh, I don't want to believe in God. So when I became a drug addict, I lost my way and became an atheist. So this has been a very weird topic for me. A part of my memoir was writing because I like it's like the other day I wrote about what the difference was between being like what God is and it's like a spiritualist and stuff. And it's like to me, I was like having a hard time defining the difference between what a religious person is and between a spiritual person is. You know, if somebody says they're a spiritual person and somebody says they're religious, it's like I really think we've defined those lines way too much because I think there's a lot of similarities between the two in belief systems. Because when you talk about somebody being a spiritualist who lights sage and believes in tarot cards and absolutely is grounded and loves yoga and chakra and all that stuff, who's to say their belief system isn't any worse than who goes to church and prays to God on Sunday and then worships the rest of the week and follows the Bible to a T.
Hmm.
So I think absolutely some type of a belief system needs to be had. But that's why I say those things is because I would say even like a spiritualist would be some type of belief system. If you want to be a shaman, by all means, that's some type of a belief system. It's like you have to have something better than nothing.
Hmm.
Because I used to not believe in God. I used to hate him. Being an atheist and a drug addict, how many times you just blame the world for everything? But and that's a weird thing because when I was writing and I was going manic, I projected outside my body and actually saw something. So, and I had the one thought that crossed my mind when I was there. It said, why would someone be so sad looking at my conscience? And it was like me turning it in. It's like, why the fuck am I so sad all the time? It was like it was like a brick wall hitting his face. But and it's weird to experience or explain because it was like I've done freebase DMT and it's the best thing I can explain is this because you literally instantly while I was typing with my eyes closed, I projected out of my body and then I saw that thing I sat with. He was like an entity sitting next to me, a gray silver thing sitting on like a cloud. So that kind of happened and that was a part of my experience. I still don't know how to explain it, or I guess I don't want to define it.
No, I know that feeling, but with fear.
It
Like I would
is.
ask myself, why am I so afraid all the time, and it's frustrating and it's depressing as well. But yeah, uh,
Right? It
yeah,
sucks. It just fucking
hmm
sucks. Because every day you wake up and you think it's going to be better. It's like, whoa. And every day you wake up and it's the same old Groundhog's Day. And, when you feel like Bill Murray, what's there to be happy about?
yeah. Time moves by a lot quicker because I always want the next day to come because I want to
Right?
feel better. And when I wake up and the things are the same, it's like, well, let me try again tomorrow. And weeks turn into years, and yeah,
Yep.
it's not. I don't know. It is frustrating, and it goes into delves into my depression, but it's because of the fear, So I do
I
know
get
that.
that. 'Cause then the birthdays and holidays come and it's kind of like a reminder, like, oh shit, another clock that it feels like it hasn't changed anything.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of makes you, like you said, it's more sad. It's like, oh, when are things going to finally change and I'll be a little bit happier? And I think it's a lot about finding your passion and too. It's just kind of like enjoying life. Because I think when I fell out of it, it's like also the things I used to enjoy, you don't enjoy anymore. It's like that's obviously the key points of depression. And then it's hard to just struggle to want to do anything. Because even just like you do something for a little bit, but then you push it off to the side and you just can't seem to have the motivation to maintain it. I don't know if you have those struggles or stuff with trying to find a passion or like an art or some way to keep your mind busy.
Well, it's that, and then even maintaining relationships too, because you don't want to talk to someone and then they want to be social or oh do this, come do that, and it's like I can't. And you some of them you are I'm pretty honest with them, but other ones it's like, oh, I can't, and then eventually you become that person that always says no, but it's for your own reasons, of like,
Right.
well, I don't feel good today, and that's every day.
Right. No, I feel that. And I kind of did the same thing with my thing was like, first thing I dove into the Red Queen and like my mom, and I just started confronting all my relationships with my family. And it's like the weird thing when you wake up or you have those spiritual moments, it's like, then you do start questioning what relationships are real and which ones you want to maintain and which ones you want and which ones are kind of energy draining for you to a certain extent. And then it's hard because even if the path that seems to be forward throws you to be alone, it's just like that has to be the best one to take at times, no matter how scary it is. And that's a hard thing to grasp too. Because I
Yeah.
think, part of my awakening was Donnie Darko, and that's a huge movie inspiration of mine. And his fear is just being alone. So I kind of connect to that.
No, that is not. I'll say my fears, because that's more of a rational fear to me, and I feel like my brain is just full of irrational fears, and the ones that like, because I can think about, oh, like I'm broke or I'm out of money, like rational fears and not be so afraid. But then like, oh, I'm gonna go outside in the dark and gonna get pulled into the sky. Like gravity's gonna turn off and I'm gonna get sucked into space. Like that's what my brain gravitates towards is those irrational fears that I don't know why I just can't shut them off.
Well, hey, that last one sounds kind of fun. You should write about that. That's like philosophical. When you stare up into the sky, and get lost and stuff like that. I love those rabbit holes. So, and I know when it comes to, I'm going to guess you overthink and over worry and stuff. And when it comes to that, that's not a bad thing because I'd say over worriers are much more hyper vigilant of what everything that's going on around you. And that's why you as well can't you be probably around everyone. Some people bug you or drain your energy because there's certain things that you probably don't want to talk about either. And that's kind of hard about my moment and stuff where it's like I isolated because I just guess, yeah, I don't know why I isolated so much because I felt like that, where I felt like I had to just push everybody away to try to find myself in a weird way. But then at the end of the day, you're alone and then you go, wait a minute, why did I kind of do that? Joke's on you. Oh, well, start over.
In what made you like I said, you said you started this memoir what around 2021. So what gave you the strength to finally, is it already complete? Are you still kind of on the finishing touches or
No, it's on Amazon, the book.
okay.
Yes. The book is on Amazon called Bipolar Enlightenment. Yeah, that's an interesting one. The first chapter is just a lot of philosophical thoughts because while I was trying to figure out life, I filled 3 journals with thoughts and writing. And then that's when I decided to compile it all into a memoir. Like I actually had the thought a year afterwards that nobody's going to believe what happened unless I write this out. Literally, it was like a thought, nobody's going to believe this. So I'm like, okay, I got to get this out. And I just started writing everything when it came to my thoughts and getting all the journals and stuff. So, and yeah, it's out. Chapter 2, it's about, hold on to your pants because it's it's a truthful story. I put everything in there unraw and uncut from when I had my eyes closed and I typed all my thoughts out to Donnie Darko. So, I mean, it goes on to insecurities and stuff. And so it's not for the young children. There's some swear words and stuff in there, but it's what I had to do. It was a weird thing because I shut my eyes, and the only thing I did was after being awake for 3 days, I just started typing out my thoughts because I was so tired of figuring. I didn't know what was going on upstairs while I was just awake. I was just like, "What is going on?" And so that's when I typed out all my thoughts. And then the crazy other thing is when I was typing my thoughts, that's when I got projected outside of my head and saw that entity or whatever you want to call it. I can actually probably pinpoint the point of the writing of when it happened, which is kind of a funny thought. So that's why it's a weird experience for me because I feel like I not only did I like weird somehow introspect in a weird way, like have some type of a spiritual experience, but I also was able to capture it on paper while I was doing it. And so it was, it's pretty weird because you can tell at certain points. I'm no psychologist, but you can tell when like there's certain points where it goes in and all I. So you could tell after I probably had that moment or like the spirit, like the snap, like literally my writing, you can see it where it's just like and that's like the part of me that was just going in here. It's like, what is I? Because it's
Mhm.
like that's what you have to start asking yourself when you're so miserable all the time. Well, what is I and what am I so miserable about? What am I so unhappy about all the time? If I do get to walk around and choose. But man, this life is weird when you look out the window sometimes. It's pretty doom and gloom. I get it. Because nothing seems to get better when you're disconnected and you're isolated.
Mhm.
And that's why surrendering is a weird thing and looking out the window right now and saying, well, the present moment holds all. I can just and like you said, there's no one around me. Look, there's no one here but me and you. So what do I have anything to fear? Like, why should I be worried about a single thing right now? I have water in my stomach, I have food in my belly, and I'm talking to you. It's like I have no other place I need to be. But that's the thing about us. We seem worried about always what's next. We're always hyper vigilant about our schedules and what am I going to be doing next. And it's hard for me sometimes. The thought of what am I doing next after this interview will come up, but I'm just like, it doesn't matter. You always have to be like, don't think about those things, those distractions and those squirrels that are so easy to just come into your head and consume. It seems like, and that's what when I over worry, I like to say, like, kind of probably what you do a little bit is like those squirrels, we entertain those squirrels a lot. We get those worries, and then man, and then we let them in. And it's like, okay, here we are. And now I'm worried. And you're like, I'm not worried about it, but it's still there. It's like you're still worried about it, even though you tell yourself you're not worried about it.
Mhm. It
And that's
makes
kind
you
of a
worry even more about it.
exactly. You took my thought. Go ahead.
No, in this memoir, was it just kind of like to help yourself, like sort of a self therapy, or do you believe like it could help others kind of find themselves or help learn from your I don't know, your story?
I do believe it's kind of a learning experience because, like, I didn't even start. My best reference is Marcus Aurelius because his book Meditations was apparently so profound because he wrote it without the intention of an audience. He wrote it, but apparently, and then passed away, and the people after him picked it up and then wrote the book about it and stuff. Just found his journal of what he was writing. So that's why meditations is kind of fun, because it's like that dude didn't even know that was going to be a book. It was just his journal he probably put away in his nightstand, and then he passed away. It's like, that'd be pretty odd if he came back and was like, wait, what? People this long are still reading my journal? What the heck? And so that I love, because in a weird way, I started writing without even the intent of, okay, I'm not a writer. English was my worst subject. I can't even spell I still write and I misspell. Spelling is my least favorite. So that's why I feel like it's a huge gesture and ironic thing for me to get called into writing myself, because I have so many terrible aspects of writing too when it comes to punctuation, grammar, and all that stuff. But I just kind of had to jokingly put it all aside and say, you know what, that doesn't matter either. I'm getting all these thoughts out. And so it was pretty crazy going into it and stuff like that. So I think I think it could potentially help people with the transformation of like how you can better yourself in this day's society. Because I don't think a lot of people have, like you said, solutions for how to be happier and stuff like that, or how to see it. And I know a lot of people are going to have their own different opinions and their own minds. And that's absolutely about what my book's about, is it being yourself and like trying to find yourself. I don't wish for anyone to take the exact same path that I did. And I sure hope no one ever has to. That was a pretty dark one, you know? And I feel like it's one of those things when somebody lives such a dark time, it's their job to share it so others don't have to. And that's hard for me to say, because you think about all the existential philosophers who just get like spawned out of suffering and terror and just absolutely horrific experiences. But what's weird is those are able to shape some of the greatest human beings that have ever been created. That's in my opinion, but that's weird. So, yeah, when it comes to just being yourself or being authentic, even me just coming out and talking to you, it's just like I'm finally ready to talk about my book. And then before I come on here, I'm like, I'm not going to show any emotions, but here I am recording it all. I'm like, whatever, I don't care, man. It has to come out. And the part of me is, it's hard because I did have a lot of suffering and internal thought and depression and suicidal issues and just suffering so much.
Yeah, but
But my memoir is also about coming out of it and being able to find a better way. So I guess people don't have to go that dark or have to take those same routes of going so far down a dark hole. And a lot of it was done, like you said, with the overthinking. And that's too a lot of my part is people, I need, warning of how people use their brains and how people think all the time. We think it's going to get better, but we just live in the same thoughts every day without even trying to change our thoughts or change our perspectives or change our like views on how we want things or how we even see things. Or like I was told my entire life, like when I was growing up as a kid, our family could not sing. Our family that, everybody hates to say, it's like, sure, now I'm ripping chords in the car, like no one cares. It's like, I don't, and it's just like being able to like come into tune with just love and life in a weird way. Because I don't know if you ever want to do things and you're in public and I'm going to do this. It's like, no, I can't do that. That'd be weird to do this right now. It's like you block yourself from doing so many things, because also my story is about being a people pleaser too, because I'm 95% agreeables per se on the personality traits. And I think people pleasing too much to a certain extent actually hinders your authenticity, because we want to make everybody happy. But what happens, we isolate ourselves in doing so. But the joke of it is, it's like, we're not really making everybody else happy. We're blocking our own voice from coming forth too. And so it's like we accept part of the future for us. That's why we accept all, like, I'm just going to take whatever comes my way. And it's hard because then nothing ever gets better. Because we do live in a world that seems like you do rely on so much more than yourself. Because we can have all these talks, hear me and you in this room right now, but we're going to hang up this phone, go back, and then 10 minutes later, we're going to go back to what we're doing, look at this, recollect and stuff, and go back to our days. And, people think things might change in a matter of 10 minutes, but the problem is sometimes things take a lot longer to change than people want. And that sucks
Yeah,
because
that's
we want instant
unfortunate.
results. Give it to me
Uh,
now. No.
Especially now. Yeah, no, we want immediate results. And I always say, I'm still going through it. Obviously, you've gone through it through the ringer, and of course you could either let it collapse you or come out of it stronger.
It's a good way to
And
look at it.
yeah, I'm still going through it. I'm still trying to find ways to get out of it, but you yourself, you've more or less come on the other side. Of course, not unscathed. You have, of course you're human, you have emotions, stuff like that, but to know that there is better afterwards, and there is like it makes me hopeful. Being here talking to you, hearing that you've made it out of it, or at least it may be a never ending battle, but you're at least feeling better from it. It makes
Yes.
me it makes me hopeful, and I appreciate that. The story you're telling.
No, yes, I'm gonna say it reminds me of the song "Comfortably Numb" by Pink Floyd. It's like they expect to find this blissful, happy, magical, like an ecstasy, a Christmas day that lasts their whole life. It's like, no, that's not the reality of what we're aiming for here. And that's why it's like comfortably numb. It's like we're just aiming for that peace of mind. A lot of people aim for ecstasy, and that's a very mistargeted thing where you want to be happy and joyful along with that like thrill of a child, but it's about being just like content and just
Hmm.
happy with everything all the time. And then when joy and all that stuff does come, really enjoy it, and then you do get to stop and enjoy the moments because it feels like you're not rushing everything too. Because I used to be a guy who literally count my footsteps, and when I'd be walking through the Boeing factory, wondering, calculating how many steps I was taking, and if I walked faster, how many minutes I would save per each walk if I walked half of a step more and faster. It's like, I don't think like that anymore, but that's like how I used to think. Is like how you're just always how I can change time or how I can always manipulate something or go faster. Yeah, that's weird.
And I'd say too that it sounds like you've come out of it from the battles too that you've had, and your past. You actually come out of it a better person too, because you appreciate the
Yes,
troubles a person could feel. You become more empathetic. You
there you go.
know that, and that's the way I feel right now. Where I haven't finished yet my, I guess, journey where I'm healed, but I'm already at that point where I'm very empathetic and I can understand. Okay, these battles are someone I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy, and I
Yo.
know, yeah, and I know that yeah, it's something we could talk about and talk about with each other. But I always say it's like a boxing match. Like I could give you my strategies, but it's a battle you have to face alone. And
So true.
yeah, no, I appreciate so you telling me your part, as well as you with these memoirs, so that they could help someone, not necessarily be in battle with them, but give them the strategies to hopefully win that.
Right? Just have a little bit of peace of mind that just, hey, guess what? Yeah, it is a little chaotic all the time, but guess what? We can relax. Try to find a better way to look at things. Just try to, I guess, one small step at a time to start thinking about your day and start thinking about what you could do to make it better. And then ask, why are you not doing those things? What could I be doing a little bit better and stuff like that to better my mind? And then you have to start challenging those things. I think I started wandering around during my process. And then one of the things, I took a 200-hour yoga teacher course. The only reason I took it was because I was going to a yoga class beforehand. And I was walking across the street and I actually got an embarrassing moment because I'm a guy walking into a yoga studio looking all funky and stuff like that. And I had that little embarrassment. I'll admit it. You as a guy you'll understand feeling a little awkward walking into a yoga studio like that. And I was doing Carl Jung research, and it's like, well, you have to do the things you're afraid of. And it's like, well, if I was embarrassed to have a yoga mat over my shoulder, Right after that class, something told me, it's like, you're taking a yoga teacher course, you idiot. Now I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it. Because actually my wife just took the course there. That's why I started doing yoga. So it kind of aligned. I'm like, okay, let's just go ahead and do it. So I think, like you said, it's about also being able to confront some of your fears healthily. I'm not saying you have to go on fear factor. By all means, it's different than that. You can you can take a much more mild approach and stuff like that. But you seem like you have a very good energy, and you seem like you have a good will to be able to ask those questions and be able to dive a little bit into it. So I think it's just about, yeah, being aware of your emotions and how you can kind of slowly start to feel better about it.
No, definitely, and I get it. It takes time. It's not a overnight process, and I
No,
get sometimes I wouldn't say, yeah, maybe my frustration get the best of me and I get impatient, but I know that I have hope that one day, it'll get there.
let me ask you this: what are your worst moments?
I just get afraid at night. Like
Okay.
I'm pretty afraid throughout the day, but it's usually night where I get scared, and I don't know if it's a thing of me um being afraid of the dark or me just being tired from being the whole day. When you're more tired, or when I'm more tired, I'm more anxious.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure. And then I have sort of like the agoraphobia where I can't travel really anywhere far at all, or I start getting anxious.
Okay.
So
Interesting. So it's just at nighttime, and I'm getting gas all the time at night. You just can't shut your brain off,
yeah, yeah. Or
and
I'm
so you
over.
have a lot of restless nights.
Yeah, it feels like where I'll sleep, but I'll feel just as tired in the morning, and it's like, didn't I sleep? What?
Yeah, like, that didn't do a dang thing. I don't want to
Hmm.
do that again. No, yeah, exactly. You don't feel rested afterwards either, because it's, in a good night's sleep and you wake up and you're like, yes, it's going to be a good day. And I think that's a lot of the thing too, is when people want that, mornings are a good one too. It's a good start to your day.
Hmm.
And I used to wake up same way as you every morning. I'd be miserable, just like, ugh, it's never getting any better. But now it's like I've come to the terms of, like, sleep is sleep, and you kind of just have to go with it. And if you're not going to sleep, sometimes maybe get up and do something for 10 minutes and then lay back down, because that kind of helped me sometimes. It's like people think you need to lay there in bed and battle it forever. And it's like, no, just lay there. And after a little bit, it's like, okay, that's fine. My brain's not ready. And that's fine. I used to do that all the time, where I'd be like, it's not going to sleep. It's not going to sleep. When's it turning off? And then you lay there and it's just all night. So I think once I started just accepting sleep for kind of the way it is, it's like, I'm just going to allow my body to do it. And so what if I only get 5 hours? And it was weird, as like, once I gave up the worry of, oh well, if I don't get enough sleep, it's almost like after that I ended up getting more sleep. And it's like, that's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, wait a minute. But it's like, in a weird way, that's what you have to kind of do, because I know a lot of people want to sleep in, and the sheets are warm. And it feels good to sleep in all the time. And don't get me wrong, there are days where I do sleep in and hit the alarm clock every once in a while, but usually I'm up decently early, as long as I don't stay up too late. But when it comes to routines, my routine is kind of funky right now. It kind of comes and goes. I would consider myself ADHD too, just like you, I'm going to assume, where it's hard to keep the exact same schedule every day.
Hmm. Yeah,
Everything's a
no,
little different at times,
yeah, no, it's a never-ending battle. It really is.
right? So it does get better, though. That's absolutely for sure. I think the number one thing is just saying, like, I'm fine the way I am. I'm good. Guess what? That's fine. And I'm just going to do what's best for me and stuff like that. So I'd recommend the people who want to stop, like, or question those different ways. If, like, you're not into psychedelics and all this stuff, do yoga, do art, do painting, do running, go to the gym. Just there's many a different things, or things you can do. But I know, like, for us ADHD and all that stuff, that's why I think sometimes with us overthinkers, that's why maybe sometimes psychedelics might be, honestly, a good option for some people like that. Because, all the ones who you could tell go do yoga, go running, go to the gym. There's a lot of people you could give all those advice to, and they're going to do all of them and fail at all of them. and they're not going to know why they still suffer. And that's hard because it's like, well, then what do you do to the people who've literally tried everything in their mind and still are suffering?
Hmm.
I don't want to say it's a last resort, but dang, it's why not? That's another way to look at it. I went to philosophy and started questioning everything. Everybody's so worried, like, oh, why? It's like, why not? And I know, I don't know if the song, like, there's a song Linkin Park Forgotten. It's like about psychedelics. I swear it's about a bad mushroom trip. I don't know if it is or not, but it's they make a reference to when the paper is crumpled up, it can't be perfect again. And I think that's why a lot of people are afraid of psychedelics because they think of their mind and their consciousness as like a piece of paper. And when you do something like that, when you crumple a piece of paper and you try to flatten it again, it's not really the same. It's kind of, you can never get it back to the way it was, like a broken bone. And I think that's a lot of the reason people think psychedelics is like that, but I don't really. It does change the way you think, so I can see why people would think that. But from the other side of crumpling up the paper, it's like there's no other way I'd ever want to live than crumple up the paper. So that's a hard way for me to put it into perspective. That's why I think
We
psychedelics is in general is hard to explain. You could go to anybody and they're going to say good luck,
well, and sometimes that new perspective is needed, like
right?
especially if you're, and I know that feeling where you've exhausted all other options.
Yes. And I think that's the point is when people get, yeah, and then they're just not sure where to look.
Hmm. No, but yeah, I know the feeling, and I
And
uh-huh.
I was going to say, in this world, I know there's a lot of people who don't get it either. There's a lot of spiritualists and there's a lot of grounded people. And then there's going to be a lot of people who don't really get it, who aren't grounded yet. And it's like, that's where we're going to have a weird shift going forward with these people who are I call it sensitive people. Yeah, you probably fit in that category just as well as me, as the one we care. It's like, dang, we just want to live life and be happy. I could care less about what anybody else does. It's like, shoot, what I
Hmm.
like to, there's too much stuff out. It's like, keep your stuff behind closed doors, do whatever you want. As long as you're respecting your body, you're not hurting anybody else by all means. That's your God given body that you're born with, nature. We're all a part of nature too. And you kind of have to accept yourself as a part of circle of life. And so that's a weird thing that I dove into about what's good for the brain and stuff like that with like, killing animals and all that stuff. And that's a weird one because there's going to be hunters and hunting, but I think it's about respecting the animal too. Just like I talked about the Native American style, where you'd have to respect every aspect of it, not kill it for a picture on Instagram. Because then that's when I feel like you're crossing your moral boundaries as like what's good in nature versus what's a show for attention or something that's just not. And I think I don't want to say it's going to get into shadow work and crossing morals, but I think when you start to play those fame and game shames and all that stuff, or you start to put on that fake face for likes or you become that people pleaser, that's when you really take a hinder to yourself and your authenticity. And that's a weird one because there may be a lot of people out there who say, yeah, I got 10 friends and I'm a blabbermouth. It's like, well, okay. I got one. Dang. Yeah, it's weird when it comes to relationships because it's like I guess that's a part of my experience too. Connecting to people is weird in this world, and it's been very hard for me to since I feel like it's been hard to even talk to people because I'm so far down rabbit holes all the time. Or I'm like you said, or I'm worrying, or I'm fearful. And when you are, just like you're talking about, when you have all those worries about all those medications and all that stuff, guess what? You're not going to be social. Nobody wants to be worrying, and you think you're going to be a very social person at the same time because people pick up on that stuff. So you can try to bury it as much as you want to, but a lot of people will pick up that you're worried and that you're doing something else, even as much as you try to hide it. So some people will pick up on that. And that's what, a lot of times you do is like, oh, worried. And then you just like, so then what we do is I call it the escape artist. My dad, and my family's called pulling a Rob because in family events, he would just disappear from family events without saying goodbye. He would never say his goodbyes or anything like that. He would just be a poof Houdini gone. And then all of a sudden they'd be like, my mom would be like, hey, where'd dad go? Like, oh, now I pulled a Rob. So like I feel like that's what we ADHDers and overthinkers and over empathetic people love, because that's what we dream of. We want to be escape artists anytime we become overstimulated or any time we become uncomfortable or we're in one of those situations where we're worrying too much. Because yeah, who just doesn't want to get the hell out of here when you become uncomfortable? And so, social situations suck sometimes because you're stuck. And I think that's where a lot of sensitive people and stuff like that, or people who have a lot of those overwhelming emotions, just get so overwhelmed and it's hard for them to maintain and it hurts them a lot.
No, I know I miss those social awkward. I don't know. I miss it. I was a pretty open person, and I liked I being part of let's say even work a community like that. But yeah, my anxiety kind of drove me away, and became more uh closed off because I just don't want to let anyone know what I'm going through, because I don't want to pass that problem off to someone else or have any sympathy for it, like, oh, I'm sorry you're going through that. It's like, no, it's not your fault. It's just something I'm going through. I need to
Yep.
try to go through it. Give me some time. And then time turns into years and you're just like, okay, well, maybe I'll never feel better.
No, I get that. Because then you're just worried all the time. It's like, yeah, no, like you said, it's not wanting to put it on other people too. So when you're worried and you're in those dark places, like then you become antisocial, especially if you're a people pleaser, because you're
Mhm.
trained to make everyone happy. And guess what? If you're sad, what are you going to do? You're going to protect everyone else from yourself in a weird way, but that's what you're actually doing. That's the way I kind of looked at it, because you're right. When you're in those dark, worried thoughts, like, but you're right. I don't want to talk to you. I'm going to go isolate in my dark room because it's like that's where I'm more comfortable. But then, like, you're right. The next day you go by, it's like, man, why am I so isolated and alone? But you're right. The day before we did that, where we're like, okay, we're booking it into our room, and then we wonder why we're there. It's a very weird. Yeah, traumas. I'm just gonna say trauma sucks. Trauma's a weird
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of people I think have trauma and don't even understand it or don't know what it looks like, because that's
Hmm.
also a part of my experience. Is like, you know, and how do you even get rid of that? And that's a hard thing to look at. That it's going to get better, but it does always get better. And that's a hard way to say it. Or it's a good way to look at it is time heals all wounds and stuff like that. If you have patience and you have understanding, time will do its thing. But if you try to grit your teeth and force it, I don't think it'll allow it. And that's one of those things. It's like the worry and all that stuff prevents it from doing its job. But how do you just tell someone to stop worrying? You can't.
You
You can't
can't.
grab them. Just like, stop. Oh,
No.
okay. If it was that easy, we'd all be no one would worry ever again.
Hmm. But no, and speaking of time, I want to appreciate and thank you for your time today. The book again was
Bipolar enlightenment.
Bipolar Enlightenment, and
Yep,
anyone can find it on Amazon, just on
correct.
there.
I think
Okay.
one can find it on Amazon. No, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, I think it's just to sum it up as I wrote it just to try to heal and to speak on enlightenment and how to heal the conscious mind type of a deal, and what I guess healing in general. I feel in one, that's why I kind of feel split a little bit. Part of me is like, whoa, this is weird. I'm the one being called because I'm the one who's had so much trauma, addiction, years of medication, and all that stuff. But it's like, on the other hand, it's like, hey, just speak your truth. Everything's going to be fine. And, a lot of those religious people say it's like you just give your hand to the truth and all that stuff. Cause I'm not very religious, but apparently that's what like Jesus stood for and all that stuff was just speak your truth. And that's a weird thing because a lot of people don't want to speak it. Because when they speak it into existence, a lot of the truth makes ourselves look bad, made
Hmm.
myself look terrible. I'm not, so it's also weird for me to sit here and say I'm spiritually awake and stuff like that, because I am not the cleanest person. I still make mistakes. I don't do all my chores all the time. I'm not the what you'd say the most driven person. I'm no David Goggins getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, running out the door and stuff like that. but I feel like up here I am and without the body aspect. So that's a weird part. And I think you understand that with the overthinking stuff like that. It's like I feel
Mhm.
like I don't have to move my body, but I can run 200 miles an hour up here whenever I want.
No,
So
I do.
yeah, good ending thoughts, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time again, and everyone check out that book. I'll have it in the descriptions. And yeah, no, thank you so much for telling a little bit of your story and uh, sharing with my audience, the same things because I know those same feelings, and I am thankful that there is hope, for everyone.
There is. I think once we start coming together too, and once everybody starts realizing in this, and once we start lifting the veil on like this whole mental health crisis, and then and we start lifting the divisions we have of all the different mental, it's like people are going to come together and be like, oh, you're schizophrenic, I'm oh, cool. It's like we just need some sort of. I love it like that because I honestly enjoy talking to the people who say they have some sort of mental health disorder rather than somebody who says, yeah, I don't. It's like, give me the person who does, honestly, because they have more to me that I could talk about and relate to. It's like that's what I love is like the mind, and those are the type of people who've also tripped over something up here that they're not what happened. And those are the type of people like I love thinking about schizophrenia and stuff like that. I would hate for it to happen to anyone by all means, but how could you have a thought in your head that wasn't yours? And that'd be a weird thing to actually try to happen.
Hmm.
And so how the human brain just works in general is a very weird thing.
No, definitely, and uh, I don't know. Again, I want to thank you so much for your time, your story, and I hope everyone checks out your book. And yeah, no, I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank everyone for another day, and yeah, I just remember every day is another day. Uh, take it as they come,
Yes, it
and
is.
yeah, thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Everyone, take care. Bye.
Namaste, everyone.